patterns, permutations, time, rhythm, coordination, meter, concentration, tempo, modulation, groove. Welcome to the DrumMantra podcast. This is Rich Stitzel, and it's time to go deeper with your practice.
So what I did is, at some point I started realizing, I can put in these sextuplets and make it sound essentially kind of faster than it is.
Polyrhythms, polymeters, what are they? How are they related? How are they different? Let's take a look. The way to be successful at something is you have to be so passionate about it that time disappears. You do not care. You are just in it. You can't wait to wake up because you get to start again. And when you go to sleep, you hope that you dream about it. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about passion.
Before I set up anything in a session, I try to find out, hey, what's the first song we're going to do? Can we go listen to it? Is there some kind of demo? And then, because I hate just throwing up any old cymbals and snare drum and whatever, building a kit and then going to listen to the song and go oh, well, I wouldn't use half the stuff that's up here.
What happens is you're moving the accents everywhere possible in a measure of 4/4, a measure of 3/4, and a measure of 5/4.
I really feel like that's a really underemphasized part of being a drummer, is getting sound.
So let's just hear what it sounds like to hear 3 16th notes at the same time as 4 16th notes. Hey everybody, what's happening? It's Rich. Welcome back to the DrumMantra podcast, episode 21. Today we are going to listen in on a conversation that I had with one of LA's most popular drummers. He plays with Alanis, Morissette, Josh Groban, Melissa Etheridge. He's done sessions for Idina, Menzel, and many, many others. Blair Sinta. I'm sure you've seen him on Instagram. He has a great YouTube channel. I'll give you all the details on the links for all that stuff. But it's a great conversation that we had, and it actually is a two-part conversation. We spoke 2 different times over the Thanksgiving holiday. So the first time we spoke, we just kind of, casually talked about some fun kind of concepts with social media and marketing and some drumming things, and just caught up. Blair and I have known each other for a very long time. We went to the University of North Texas together, and we were actually in the Zebras band together. The Zebras. We were in the Zebras together, and we have some history throughout the early 90s, and it was fun to catch up again. I ran into Blair maybe 2 years ago when he was in Chicago with Melissa Etheridge, and it was great to hear him play. He's such a solid drummer, musical, no nonsense. Every decision is just great. He's a very fine musician. So excited for you to hear that. And before we get into that, I just want to thank all my companies real quick: the A&F Drum Company, Craviato Drum Company, Sabian Cymbals, Evans Drumheads, Vic Firth Sticks, the Polynome App, and the Box Kit Cajon Company. Those are all companies that I am associated with, and I love all of their products from every company. Just fine instruments and really great people at all of those companies. So if you're interested in upping your gear game, I would highly recommend checking out any of those companies. I also wanted to give you a reminder that the Primary Series book is basically available. It's at the printer. It will be back in my hands in just a couple of days. The Primary Series book is book 2 in the DrumMantra collection. Book 1 is the foundational series. That book covers basically duple-based accents and permutations across 3 different time signatures, 3/4, 4/4, and 5/4. It lays the groundwork for Book 2, the Primary Series. The Primary Series entirely focuses on the 3/4 polymetric relationship and the 5/4 polymetric relationship, and those how they function within 3/4 time, 4/4 time, and then 5/4 time. It is, I would consider it to be an advanced book, but I also think it's pretty accessible once you understand the concepts and once you start to get the whole process of the book under your hands. There are 6 brand new rhythmic melody sections. If you have the foundational series, you know that there are 3 different rhythmic melody sections where there are melodies written that you can practice reading and performing with different combinations of coordination happening in different limbs. There are 6 new rhythmic melody sections for a total of 48 melody lines. So it's a huge challenge. It's a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed putting the book together. I also really enjoy practicing the book. I practice out of the book every single day. It helps my time. It helps my comfort level when I'm playing gigs. It slows down my mind. It allows me to concentrate much better. And just overall, everything improves. And I definitely owe it to the work I've done out of the book. I would use this book no matter who wrote it. I just happened to be the one that got the idea to write it. It's a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. And I hope to get to share it with you and discuss more about it in the future. The primary series is available at my website, richstitzelmusic.com. Okay, well, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into part 1 conversation with Blair Sinta. I'll see you at the end.
Call is now being recorded.
Uh-oh.
This is the CIA.
That's it. Don't say anything. From now on, you are incriminated.
Yeah. All things you say will be used against you in the court of law.
How you doing, dude?
It's so good, man. It's so crazy. I'm talking right now to somebody on Facebook who lives in Liechtenstein, and we were actually talking about you.
Oh, really? Crazy.
Yeah,
wow.
I was telling about your YouTube show right now.
Right on.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, man.
So
I know that you know this, but I saw Ari a few days ago do his show. Wait, did you see him? Did he come through town, or you guys just talked?
No, we just talked.
Okay.
Was it insane?
Yeah, I swear to God, half the time I didn't understand what was happening. You know.
Oh my God.
Whoa. I mean, it's like that good. It's like there's like a different language happening. I'm just like, whoa.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Otherworldly. I try to understand and try to hang on, and it makes me feel like a child.
Oh, totally. It's like if you haven't stayed in that kind of, it's almost specifically New York, you know, is the way I look at it. It's like, but if you're not part of that thing, you've been left behind of like the evolution of that language, you know.
Is anyone doing that in LA?
Not like that. I mean, I don't know if anybody quite does it like Ari does it, you know. And like there is a migration of these New York cats coming to LA. Like Zach, have you seen Zach Danziger's thing, the Edit Bunker thing?
Yeah.
That's like bizarre.
I mean, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it live.
Okay, but you've seen video. I mean, it's like it's so nuts, man. It's crazy, you know. And those guys are kind of moving to LA, but it's definitely not an LA thing. You know, like it wasn't developed here. Yeah, so I can't really say that it's an LA, you know, anybody from LA doing anything like that.
The only person I know that might be from LA that's doing that's now in New York would be Nate Wood.
Right. But New York, Nate's been there a long time now, you know?
Yeah, totally. I don't know how New York breeds that kind of intensity. I mean, that kind of progressive.
I think to live there, I think you're prone to maybe
you're in it.
You're already that kind of personality, you know.
Yeah, you're surrounded by it.
Yeah, and like that's a survival mechanism in a certain way, and then you know those kind of people go there because they're attracted to that, you know.
Right.
And that sounds bad, but I mean that in a positive way.
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember a couple guys from school going there. I can't remember the guy's name specifically. He was a great drummer, and I went and visited, a long time ago, and I remember running into him, and he had a dog walking business, and that's what he was doing to pay the bills.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I went out and stayed with Paul Stivitz, like 92 for a week.
Paul Stivitz was there in 92?
2002.
Oh, okay. I was like, what?
Right, we were still at school in 92.
Yeah.
So what were you were just in Florida?
Yeah, I was doing a Groban gig.
So, man, it seemed like you were doing 3 days of rehearsals for a concert? Was that what?
We did, actually just 2. We did, we got in Friday, we did a rehearsal Friday night, and then a rehearsal Saturday, and then did did the gig on Sunday. Well, technically we did a rehearsal Sunday too, because we had a live orchestra, so we had to do a rehearsal with the orchestra.
Was it filmed? Was it something that was like?
No. This is a usual gig for him. This was like it was like a corporate gala thing, like, you know, some hospital in Florida, huge money donor thing. But no, not filmed. But, you know, with Josh, there's always like the set list is not defined, and so there's always like we learned a brand new song that hasn't really been played live yet, but we learned it anyway. We didn't do it, but we're working on the arrangement, and the gig is quite specific. There's just a lot of moving parts, so they like to get rehearsals in, you know.
Right.
For me, I probably get the most free reign of anybody. For the pianist, he's basically reading the gig. Right. Stevens, who's a monster. But as long as I'm playing the tune, they're not worried about like fills or whatever. They kind of want me to like bring some energy. That's kind of the cool part of that gig. It's like you make this. It's like drums. You make this more of a rock show. You know, bring some edge to it. Yeah.
It's funny because you and I were going to try to talk on Saturday, and then we didn't. But I played a gala that night backing up the lead for Hamilton in Chicago, and he sang You Raise Me Up.
Oh, wow, really?
I'm like, this is hilarious. This is so funny that you're playing with Groban and I'm playing a Groban tune with the Hamilton guy.
Yeah.
And, but man, it's so much fun playing those power ballads. I love that.
Oh, totally, man. I like that tune. Man, it's like he does it at like, I don't know, 60 BPM or something like that. And like the click is on quarter notes. And it's just like, I'm like, why is the click even in here? It's like, it's not helping at all. Okay, I'm still with it. Yeah.
I love the slow click. I love slow tempos. I guess that's the Texas in me. The fatness of everything.
I've definitely been more of a slow tempo person, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a sink or swim thing for North Texas, like learning how to play ballads and keep them like brushes. Like,
it's my favorite thing to do. I don't know if it's because I'm rebelling against, like, I moved to Chicago 16 years ago, and everything here is super tight, super on top of the beat and intricate. And I just came in, I'm like, I don't play like that. But
right, not gonna happen.
Yeah, not gonna happen. I'll try. I mean, I definitely learned to do that since I've been here. But
whenever I emulate that, I rush. You know, I don't have. It's like I can sit back on something and stay in tempo. You know, but if I'm asked to play on top, then it takes off. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, man, there's a keyboard player in town here that is just insane. He was actually number 2 in the world 2 years in a row on tenor drum for the Cavaliers.
Oh, wow.
And then he moved over to piano, and he is ridiculous, and he's so freaking good. And he knows everything about any subdivision, any combination of time. And I play with him on 80% of my gigs, so I've learned. So he's been like my little Yoda. It's been amazing to kind of learn from someone that knows that much.
Right. He's younger than us?
He is. He's probably in his mid-30s. He's 10 years younger.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a crazy transition. He must have always played piano, though.
He did, but man, he's meticulous, you know, composition. He just edited my last book that's about to come out. And
oh, wow.
He's just meticulous with everything he does, and he's a good role model for me.
Yeah.
He keeps me honest, man. You know, it's great to have these players in your life that are like, okay, I've got to make sure that everything is exactly right. I love it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Important.
I don't really have an MO here. I just thought we would chat, and then I would kind of pull little pieces together and, turn it into a podcast. So a lot of things that we say today, you might not even hear. Did you hear the Ari podcast?
I haven't.
The one
yet.
that I did.
I haven't. I gotta. When did you start doing this? Recent, right?
You and I are episode 21.
Oh, okay.
So I've been doing it for two months. The reason I started doing it in the first place was I was like, man, it sure would be cool to have a podcast where there was like actual music examples and someone talking about them, so you could hear, some kind of phrase or some kind of concept. And it was like, you're actually listening to something educational. So that's what I wanted to hear. And so I thought, well, I'll just create it. A lot of my podcast episodes are that. It's like, now we're going to check out this, this concept, and I'll play a bunch of examples that I've programmed and discuss in detail.
Oh,
how to hear things from different perspectives, and cool. So it's my own little nerdy project. But then the thing with Ari was he put something up on Instagram and said if anyone can transcribe this, they'll get free tickets. And so I was like, man, I'm going to try this. And it was crazy.
Did you get
so
it?
I wrote him. I got everything, but I think there were 3/16 ghost notes that I did not have in there.
Oh, wow.
But I sent it to him. I said, how's this look? He says, it's close. And I said, well, man, I'd love to talk about the process on my podcast of what I did for transcribing. And he said, well, why don't we talk about it when we do the podcast?
Okay, cool.
Like, okay, it looks like the interviewing portion of this podcast is about to begin. So he was the first.
Oh, nice.
And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this in alphabetical order. So you're the second.
Okay, nice.
And then Carter McLean is third after you. And he says hello, by the way. Do you guys know each other?
Of course, I know Carter. We talk. We text quite a lot, and
he's great. He's
a bad motherfucker. Yeah.
I know, man.
Yeah.
And he claims to be self-taught, and I'm going to get to the bottom of that whole thing.
Does he really?
Yes.
That guy's got
so
crazy
funny.
hands, man.
I know.
He's got crazy hands. Yeah.
That thing where he was accenting every fifth note but going through different stickings, that's the first thing that caught my attention. Like, what?
Yeah. I'm just in awe of his technique, really. You know, like it's just so fluid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. All right. I want to hear that.
Yeah. So the thing that's great about you and Ari with me getting comfortable doing these podcasts is that we have a little bit of history.
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember that you and I were in the Zebras together?
Now that you say that, I do. Yeah.
I keep forgetting because I don't remember that experience at all. So here's my little pieces of my interactions with you is there. And then and I was telling Ari this, when at one point my practice room was right next to yours.
Yes, I remember that.
And Ari was across from us.
Yes, totally. I remember that.
And a couple other people. I can't remember who else was on that hall. Max Open might have been somewhere nearby.
Yeah.
That was an intense time. It was almost scary to practice because you were afraid of, I was always nervous of who was outside the door.
Oh, I remember listening to Ari being like, who is this fucking alien? You know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then finally realizing that Carlock had his own house, so you weren't gonna hear him unless you went there. He and Jason Farr lived together, I think.
Yep.
So that little window, and I remember you played in a band. You were playing in a band with Aiden and Hillary Tips way long time ago.
Yep, that was called Matfield Green.
Matfield Green.
Jerry Rosin. Yep.
And Don.
And Don Sinta.
Yep. Right. And then after school, so let's go forward and back. Let's just jump all over the place as it comes.
Okay.
After school, did you go straight to L.A.?
I went straight to LA. Yeah, after about 2 weeks after I graduated, I did a New Year's Eve gig and then I moved here like the next day, like January 3rd, technically.
Why did you decide LA over New York or Chicago? I mean, that's where you grew up.
Why did I decide LA? Well, I was actually quite set on going to New York, and then I kind of came to my senses and thought, like, wait, before you came to school, you didn't want to be a jazz drummer, and I felt like if I went to New York, that's really what I was pursuing. And I also didn't feel as though I was like a heavy enough dude to hang playing New York jazz. So that's why. And Don Sinta had moved out here.
Don went out there before you.
Yes. Yep. Not long, couple months. But that was, so I was like, I can crash with him. John Button was out here and Steve Cotter was out here. Uh-huh. And then I started to gig with Steve Cotter like almost immediately, doing little jazz hit. And in fact, I saw him the other night at Ari's gig. That was really great to see him. And then not long after I moved there, I think within a month, I was crashing with Don. And then John Button moved out of this little house up in Van Nuys, like the North Valley, and I took over John's room. And I moved in with some guys and formed a band there and met a lot of people just from moving into that kind of little niche that John had already started to carve.
Because he's a couple years after us, right?
I think he's Carlock's age. He's like 2 years older than us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And John and I have played a lot of gigs over the years, lots of sessions, and we haven't actually been on the road together, but we work together a lot, to this day. In fact, he was at my studio last week recording something here. So we still hang.
He's doing the Who gig now.
He's playing with the Who. Yep.
That's crazy, man.
It's awesome. Yep.
Yeah, very awesome.
He's played with Sheryl Crow and
right.
Michelle Branch. We played with Michelle Branch for a minute together. He played with this Latin artist named I'm going to space on the name right now, but he did that for a while. And yeah.
Did you know Jimbo Justin? You knew Jimbo Justin.
Of course. Well, I didn't know Jim at school at all, but we totally hang whenever he comes through town.
He's in San Francisco, right?
Yeah. He's like outside of San Francisco, but yeah, he's up there. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So did you do Sheryl Crow after him, or
no? I never played with Sheryl.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I never played with Sheryl. Yeah, I would love to play with Sheryl Crow, but no.
Yeah.
So, I moved out here and I just started getting into the pop thing. You know, I mean, I've kind of covered, just for our purposes, I've kind of covered like my history a lot in other podcasts.
Sure.
So I'd love to make it if yours was different. You know,
yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Like, anybody that's listening to me, they're like, oh, you guys talking about the same shit again. You know.
No. Yeah, I just want to kind of get established with what's up. But
yeah, totally. Yeah.
Well, cool. Okay, so let's just let's go to this part. Have you talked about your family before?
No, not that much.
Okay.
No.
All right. So you grew up. Your dad is he a classical saxophone player?
Yes. Yeah, my dad is a classical saxophonist. He was a professor at the University of Michigan for 40 years. Professor of saxophone.
Okay. Is he still with us, or is he just retired?
Yeah, he is. He just retired 2 years ago, and he still practices every day. He's not really digging anymore, but he still plays every day and he stays at it. And yeah, he was definitely a major. Would you say? Not influence, but our music was in our house because of that. My mom was also a public school music teacher.
Okay.
But yeah, music was ever present, and because of them, I went to the National Music Camp, the Interlochen, for a number of summers when I was I don't know, between like 11 and 14 or 10 and 15, something like that, and that was definitely a major kind of great educational time. Just being I was mainly playing classical music at that point. And the whole, like, everything drum set I was self-taught. I wasn't really, it was all like timpani, mallet, all that stuff, and frankly, that's part of why, that was like a major thing of me getting into North Texas, because I was not like, a heavy jazz drummer or anything when I got there,
So your legit reading and skills there kind of was the door open.
Yeah, my audition for Doc was like sight reading, timpani, and mallets and things like that, and I think he was like, oh wow, like I was playing four mallets pretty heavily already,
wow,
in high school and things like that, and playing vibes. So yeah, that was kind of my in, but like really my goal was to become Vinnie Colaiuta, basically.
Right, sure. Everyone's goal.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you feel like I grew up. Both of my parents are professional musicians as well, and sometimes I feel like it almost feels like there might be a disadvantage to having professional musicians as parents, because they see things in a particular way. Like, I feel like there wasn't as much music being played in my house as kids I knew whose parents weren't musicians, because it was kind of a safe place to have peace and quiet.
Like decompress. Interesting.
Yeah. Were you in a musical home as far as like listening and?
I would say that no, I don't think we played a lot of music in my house, but I was taken to classical music concerts a lot.
Right, and you probably knew your dad's colleagues as well.
Yes, because I would go take lessons at the University of Michigan, and I knew all his kind of colleague professors, but yes, I would say that here's the funny thing is like my parents, they didn't listen to pop music at all. It was always classical music in the house. And I always had the thing that, like, when you're an adult, you listen to classical music. As a kid, you might listen to rock and pop, but, like, as you get older, you just listen to classical music, because that's what my parents did. And I would get in cars with friends, and their parents would have on, like, top 40 radio, and I was like, oh, that's weird.
Well, yeah, right. I had that same thing, man. Like,
did you really?
Yes. Well, I did, but with jazz.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always thought that pop equaled kind of this other world that wasn't quite matured. Because I always thought that same thing with jazz.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, my dad definitely, he tried to introduce me to, Art Blakey and, even Steve Gadd, but, the kind of traditional jazz never really took to me until I got to school. I definitely got into Weckl and Dennis Chambers and those guys that we were into in the late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
Then, but like that discovery of like traditional jazz for me didn't happen until it was like sink or swim. I was like, oh wow, I'm at North Texas. This better get this act together,
Right. Did you feel almost nervous or that it was like wrong to listen to pop music when you were a kid? Like, did you feel like I'm wasting my time if I'm listening to something that isn't completely pristine?
No, I definitely never had that. No, it was never frowned upon with me. I do think it probably led to me being into bands like Rush, not just because of Neil Peart, but because it was more complex music than, like, new wave music back in the early 80s, mid 80s, just never connected with me because it just felt so simple,
Right.
I do think there was a correlation between like all that classical music and and the pop music that I gravitated toward, or rock music, I should say, not pop music. But no, it was never frowned upon, like what I was listening to.
Even self-imposed. Like you kind of said it because you said some certain pop seemed just too simple, so it didn't pique your interest.
I guess I didn't really think of it that way, but yes, maybe self-imposed. Yeah.
Right.
But I think it was more of a feeling as opposed to a cerebral thing of like interest, Like,
right.
If something was simple, I just wasn't interested in it. I don't think it was because like my nose was necessarily turned up. It was just like, well, it's kind of boring,
Right.
Like The Cure is a great example. Like I was never into The Cure until I was much older and I was into songs. I was like, oh my God, Robert Smith's an incredible songwriter. But like,
right.
As a technical drummer, that was just so simple and that just didn't interest me,
Right.
Now I listen to The Cure. I'm like, man, what an incredible songwriter.
Yeah, how brilliant. I know.
Yeah.
So wild, man. My uncle was a super heavy session drummer in the 70s and 80s. He lived in LA, but he was always in Nashville. And incredible. He was in the 1 O'Clock Following stuff. Actually, he was the first person.
Really?
So yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, crazy.
His name was Matt Betton Jr. He was with Buffett for years, and he was kind of interchangeable with Keltner in the 70s, doing a lot of stuff with T-Bone Burnett, and I mean, he was a big session guy. So I always looked at him like this amazing drummer, and of course, when I was 15, it was all Dave Weckl and the Electric Band, and I remember asking him, who's the best band? When you're 15, you can ask that kind of question. And I'm expecting them to say, well, Chick Corea and the Electric Band. I mean, and he said Simon and Garfunkel. And I was like, I was shocked. Like, I couldn't even believe what I just heard. And then for Christmas that year, he gave me a Ry Cooder album, and I'm like, what is this?
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to get any chops from this thing. And of course, 20 years later, it's like, oh.
Yeah, he really knew.
I get all of that. Yeah, I understand all of it. So it's interesting how, I want to go back to North Texas real quick, because one of the things that struck me about the way that you played, even back then, and the Zebras was the main thing that I remember hearing you play, because that was like a pop gig. But you were everything you did was very simple and very solid. Like your time was really happening even back then. It just felt good. There were your ideas were creative, but not chops creative. They were musical and, more of a compositional approach to playing. And I would imagine that is because of the literature that you grew up listening to and practicing, because you're, playing melodic things. And I just so you hear these drummers who are playing gigs and they're overplaying it. They're throwing things in that aren't musical. They're more like technical, choppy kind of things.
Yeah.
And it's that maturity of being able to express yourself without the need to like impress somebody playing for the song.
All right, that's interesting, because I'll put it this way: with guys like, Keith Carlock and Jason Farr, and Jason was one of my best friends at school. I was just totally insecure about chops. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So
of course, well, yeah, those guys, yeah.
I equated it to that, like playing more simple. And, I always had a struggle between like the kind of Porcaro versus Vinny thing.
Yeah.
There was so much curriculum to get through, like Garibaldi book and things like that there were often times I was like, man, I just need to like play along to Toto records or whatever and work on that, because it definitely was always important to me, the feel thing. Like early on, that was important to me, but the kind of not playing with chops thing, I equate that to being insecure about not being able to play the things that compared to cats like that. I mean, there were so many. I mean, even like I'm trying to think of some other guys from that era. But there's so many.
Rich
so many
a
guys.
lot.
Oh yeah, Rich. And Rich had that kind of year where he kind of like came out of nowhere, and he all of a sudden he was a total beast. But I just never felt like I had that kind of facility. Even to this day, it's just, I think it's something that I probably haven't spent as much time on as people. But part of it is, definitely it's maturity now. But part of it was out of insecurity of just like, oh, I can't even hang. I used to sub for Carlock in Dallas Brass and Electric like my last year there. I always found it interesting. Like we kind of became friends through Jason, but I always thought it was interesting that I was kind of like his first call sub at that point because I was so not able to do what he could do. I just appreciated that he called me. So
right.
But maybe that's something that stuck out then that I didn't even realize.
Yeah, I mean that's what I saw, and then because I remember that, and then I remember getting that feeling of like, okay, this is mature playing. This is real. It's interesting. It's solid. It's creative, but it's not like technically crazy, which is beautiful. I mean that's the whole goal.
Right.
And then I remember being in LA, and I remember crashing on you and Don lived together for a while, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. And then I came through with a band and crashed on your floor. I don't know if you remember that. I was out there with Adrian and Brad Thompson. Yep, we played.
Oh yeah. I remember that totally.
Played Molly Malone's, and you came to the show.
Yeah, totally.
And Carrie Floyd came to the show, who was the leader of Tin Man.
Right.
And I remember introducing you to Carrie, saying, "This is the guy." Like telling Carrie, "You're the dude that he needs to check out there." And of course Keith was always Carrie's drummer. Right. And I remember feeling like very confident in saying that, even though I know you guys are very different players. I just knew that your musical maturity was right for anything that he may need. And at that time he was kind of on fire. So but I don't think he's really doing much anymore, Carrie.
Right. Well, I appreciate that.
But yeah, I just remember, having that thing of like, man, yeah, Blair has something special, and obviously it's come to fruition because you've been hired by tons of amazing artists and have made a great career in LA with it.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah.
You're doing all these gigs. Do you teach?
I'm teaching more. I kind of really avoided it for a long time. I think just because I had such an educational background, it was like the plague to me. It kind of felt like
right.
I didn't want that. But I'm doing it more, and I really enjoy it. I'm doing Skype lessons for people, and I find that the people who seek me out are often like professional or semi-professional players. And they definitely want a specific thing, I kind of like we just discussed, nobody's obviously coming to me for, learning metric modulation or anything like that, It's more about like playing for songs and feel and those types of things, which is great. I love talking about that stuff.
Yeah, getting sounds live studio.
Yeah, because I really feel like that's a really underemphasized part of being a drummer is getting sounds. Like I can't remember one time being in school thinking about, except for maybe where I crank my snare drum, like what my drums are supposed to sound like for the gig. And those kind of things really started to seep into me more the more studio work I did, because you realize that you're helping define how a song sounds through your drum sound.
Sure. Yeah.
So I love the idea of not just snare drum tuning, but like dampening and mixing tones and And like, you know, the idea of having like a certain bass drum and being able to do a number of different things with it and not just thinking like, you know, for example, like, oh, I have an 18-inch bass drum. I tune it, you know, like super high and use it as a bebop bass drum.
Right.
You know,
right.
Because
right.
it's not limited to that. You know, it doesn't have to be limited to that anyway. And, you know, this past year, I've had a number of drummers, like really good drummers here in LA, come through my room, and we just talk about like, you know, you're going for this. This is kind of how we achieve this, and we talk conceptually about like how to get those things out of your drums. Because I just think, especially when people really start working, a lot of people just don't think about it. You know, they're like, I just kind of do this, or the drums just sound like this when I show up, and I just play them, and I just do my thing.
Right.
So that's been really interesting to me to like kind of explore that with some different drummers who I really respect, kind of help them open their eyes a bit to some of that stuff too.
Do you see a change, like, you know, the old school way of doing sessions, and this is sort of how sessions still function in Chicago that I do, is the producer plays a pretty big role. So the producers that I work with in this town know my drums, know which drums I have, and a lot of times I get a list in the email of which drums they want me to bring. And I do make, like, in the situations I'm in, I can make suggestions, but it's almost like the producer already knows which drums they want. And it's always in a studio. So, and so there's not a lot of experimentation, I feel, in the session work that I'm doing here.
Okay.
But what I'm noticing with, you know, the LA scene, it's like you guys have got your home studios. And you're doing are you tracking from your home for record? Yeah.
Yes.
So that's really going on there, and I think that might be going on in New York, maybe. I don't really know. It seems like everyone's more band oriented, project oriented in New York, and you're doing records. And Chicago's somewhere in the middle. I mean, it's a little bit of both. But it seems like the home studio drum thing is super strong out there. So you have the ability to take someone's tracks and say, here are 3 different ways that your song could sound, and you give the artist back. Like I did notice I was watching some of your YouTube videos, and you did a demonstration of like a 12/8 tune. You did it one with brushes and then one with sticks.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, the way I'm seeing work go is almost 9 times out of 10, maybe not that much, 6 times out of 10. There's no one here but me. And I kind of look at it as I'm part of the production. I'm slightly producing. You know, I don't want to go as far as to say co-producing, but I'm making like definitive sonic choices on how somebody's song or record is going to sound.
Right.
Yeah.
So are you getting called by producers,
told,
or are these artists that are contacting you, or
it's
actual
both.
Like label producer people type?
It's
both. So
it's all of the above. Yeah. I mean, usually if there's a label involved, then there's a producer.
But you're still doing it at your place. Sometimes you're going to studio.
I would say if it's a label, it's often there's a budget and they want to go somewhere to do it.
Right.
But I am never told. I may be told what we're going for, but I'm never told what drums to bring. I would say there's a lot of experimentation. I mean, usually, you know, before I set up anything in a session, I try to find out, hey, what's the first song we're going to do? Can we go listen to it? Is there some kind of demo? And then, because I hate just like throwing up like any old cymbals and snare drum and whatever, building a kit and then going to listen to the song and go like, oh, well, I wouldn't use half the stuff that's up here that we just got down for 20 minutes. So, you know, I really try to find out what we're doing. If I'm in an actual studio first, I try to find out what we're doing, and then I build my kit around that. And then if we need to change things, cool. But, you know, the experimentation part, I would say, is wide open, you know.
Right.
And people are totally, they want that, you know. Especially, I feel like this day and age with pop music and programming, you know, people can be so definitive with like, hey, I'm going to program this kick and snare, and they can go through like 100 of each of those. There's like a real meticulous ear toward that now.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Are you? So let's talk about your studio. How many pre's do you have? Are you miking everything? Room? Two on kick, 2 on snare, or are you just, does it depend on what you're going for?
Right, it depends. It totally depends. I have 14 pre's. I can go that far if need be, but I try to mic for the song, really.
Yep.
And if I can get it down to 2 mics, I think that's great. you know, like if it's kind of like a, 60s-esque type recording where it's a minimal thing and I'm allowed to get away with it, I'll use way less mics. But, often, actually to kind of just say the opposite of what I just said is, often I'll record the whole kit, but I'll mute everything except maybe 3 mics and then just say like, hey, this is what I used and this is how I think it sounds the most authentic to what you're going for. But here's the other thing. I did record everything else and here it is if you need to use it, because then, obviously I'm not involved in mixing and I don't want to lock them in too much. They're like, oh man, the guy didn't give me any tom mics and like I could really use that because I've put all these guitars on and now nothing's cutting through.
Right.
Yeah.
So you might do I actually did I just did a session with someone out in LA in my studio and I sent back my mix of how I would hear it. And then I also included all the stems and said, like you just said. So there's a chance that it's going to sound the way that I hear it, but there's also a chance that they're going to remix it and it won't sound anything like the way I heard it. And sometimes, so if I send it and I'm like, this is how I hear it, but if I send them all the stems, the final product might not sound anything like the way that I intended it.
Yeah.
Have you had that come up or is it pretty?
I feel like that. Yeah, to me that's like, I almost expect that even when I've made records in like big budget records with big artists in the studio and like you listen to playback of a take and there's a certain mix happening and it sounds phenomenal and then you hear it when it hits the street and you're like, wow, that is nothing like what we did.
Right.
So I try not to hold on to that idea of like, this is what it sounded like when we finished that day. I feel like I've been disappointed a lot by that and I just kind of realized like once it leaves once I leave the studio or once the session leaves my studio, it's all up in the air and I have no idea what kind of production decisions are going on or the direction the artist wants to go or anything like that. So I try not to like get disappointed in that anymore. Hopefully I just did a good job playing it and I know that they left with stuff that sounds really good. And then they can do what they want, and that's all the control I have. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're some of these videos, it looks like you are making a big push with your YouTube channel as almost like an educational place to demonstrate your studio concepts with Sinta sounds.
Right.
And you're going through the process of different tunings or are you doing anything with mic techniques? I'm kind of looking through here. Have you done anything with talking about?
I am a little bit. I'm trying to figure out how to let that out of the bag a little bit because I also want to monetize a little more before I feel like I'm giving everything that I'm good at away. Yeah, I'm trying to touch on that stuff a bit without giving the whole thing away,
That's tricky, isn't it?
Yes.
Have you listened to, do you listen to any like podcasts or anything about kind of the business of social media and all that?
I dive into it and then I retract from it and then I dive into it and I get tired of it and
Yeah.
I
think it's the Wild West. I mean, I think everyone's trying to figure out exactly how to do it. Obviously, it's so brand new.
Yeah. I mean, Carter to me has really like figured it out, like where he's gone. I'm kind of amazed at what he's done,
Well, his Instagram has exploded.
His Instagram's ridiculous. It feels like his website and his subscription seems to be doing quite well. And I think that's really that's a point I'd love to get to, but, I find it tricky to be on the road and have a schedule that's kind of all over the place and being consistent with that, which is something I just need to figure out.
Yeah, because there's the whole thing of becoming, getting known, making sure that people know who you are, finding which medium that people gravitate towards with you particularly because, someone might, Carter has 32,000 people or whatever on Instagram, but someone else might have 32,000 people on YouTube and 500 people on Instagram.
Right. Right.
It's so crazy how that works.
And there's also people that, in my opinion, I feel like are not doing anything special and they have 40,000 Instagram followers and I'm kind of like, okay, where's the, what am I missing here?
I know. Do you know Mark Walker? Paquito de Rivera's drummer. He teaches at Berkeley. He's ridiculous Latin dude. He's from Chicago, but he and I were talking one day. We were on Facebook and something was happening, and he had just posted something really heavy, and it got like 1 like, and then I posted something super heavy, and it didn't get much attention. And we were chatting on Facebook, and I said, check this out, man. Let's do a little experiment. So I went over to one of the really populated Facebook drummer pages with 30,000 people. And I write the question, drummers, what is your favorite shoe to wear while drumming? and I hit send, and Mark and I watched it populate. Hundreds of people replied within minutes.
Right.
What do we do?
It's a totally ridiculous question. Yeah. Superfluous. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, how do you capture, because, you feel like you're starting to find your audience. And
I do.
And also, because people are starting to reach out to you and say, can I do a Skype lesson and learn more about what you just talked about in your YouTube video? Is that kind of how things might be moving?
You know how I'm trying to look at it is just do your thing. It's kind of like being an indie artist. Like, do your thing, be consistent with the message that's happening, and you'll find your audience. I've definitely done some reading about that, kind of like Seth Godin and guys like that. I was reading this book called Find Your Tribe, and it's really about that. Yep. It's like, you got to do your thing, and there are people out there that you will find, or they will find you, and it'll, if you're consistent with it, then it'll work. So that's kind of my mentality. Like, I'm not as consistent as I'd like to be with the YouTube thing, but I do see that I'm finding like-minded musicians and drummers on there, and I think that's really what it's about, is just trying to be consistent with the message. And it is who it is. I'm not going to get gospel drop cats looking at my page necessarily. I mean, maybe, who knows, but if they're looking for that, then I'm not the guy, and that's totally fine. Right. There are guys that have way more to offer on that than I do.
So do you have an idea to, kind of do more like teaser videos on YouTube, and then have a place on your website that is like, get access to the whole process, and then you really break it down, like, here's where the mics are placed, here's where the pre's are set.
I've been working on something slowly of like a product to sell that I can, I don't know if there's an actual number of YouTube or Instagram people that I have before I kind of release that. It's not done yet anyway, but I think at some point, I go, oh, well, if you like this, then here's some kind of insider information that you can come pay for.
Right.
That's kind of how I'm thinking about it. And it's just something that I'm working on slowly. And that includes like miking things and, getting sounds and more in-depth tuning things, all kinds of things like that.
Have you listened to much Gary Vaynerchuk?
Oh, no, I've heard of that cat though.
His whole thing is you give everything away for free. And I'm wrestling with that right now because, I've got 2 books out. I probably have 40 or 50 full-length, hour-long lessons with PDFs and play-alongs on my website. And I have some members, and I have some subscribers and followers and stuff, but it's like, it's scary to think, well, if I give all this away, where's the value?
Yeah.
And the thing that he keeps trying to drive home is you create trust by giving it. And then you become, it's almost like that puts you into the position of it's about you. So then you personally are asked to come and do a residency at, some heavy school where you're talking about it in depth.
And then you kind of do your same thing, but it's more personal and one-on-one or whatever.
Yeah, it's one-on-one. Right. So like every single thing that you create is your business card, and the product is you as an actual person.
Right.
And then when you interact with the people, then they become even more excited, and they want your premium content where they pay.
Yeah, I know that philosophy of give everything away. I think there's partly a generational thing, partly a fear thing of like actually believing in that.
I know.
And one of my good friends is Tim Pierce. He's one of the like heaviest session guitar players in LA for like the last 30 years. He has a YouTube following of 100,000 people, and he's got a subscription thing on his website, and he says the same thing. He's like, you got to give it all away, and then you have other things, and people buy them, and that's the real key. And he's been working on it for 7 or 8 years now, and it's working for him like big time.
Yeah.
So, it's funny to have this conversation because it's like I've had a hard time wrapping my head around that, but it is the key,
It's that, and it's also being in it for the long haul. instead of trying to figure out how to make a quick turnaround. Like I've been doing my website for a year and a half. When I very first started, I'm like, okay, I'm putting my first lesson up. Let's see if anyone subscribes.
Right.
Of course, no. And then the next week I put another lesson up, and it's like getting into that habit of you post on Instagram, and why are you posting on Instagram? Are you trying to lead someone to somewhere else, or it's crazy. I'm with A&F, was one of my drum companies.
Right.
And they're like social media sweethearts.
Oh yeah.
You know, Rami can post something and it'll get 20,000 views. So it's kind of like, what exactly is this relationship about, you know, besides really good instruments?
Right.
And so I think now, there's certain companies. Who are you with? You were with DW?
Yes.
Istanbul?
DW, Istanbul, Regal Tip, Remo.
And do you get any reciprocal, I mean, is it cool in LA to be doing this? I mean, I don't know.
I think it's the name of the game these days. I don't think anybody has any, I don't think anybody looks down on it or anything like that. You know, I mean, I think there's people that look down on the way that some people do it, but then again, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? I think, you know, there's so many different ways of doing it that just do it. And, you know, like we said, you'll find your audience. Because there's some people that are very in your face and very eccentric about them, and it works, you know. And then there's other people that are more on the kind of educational side of it, and it's really not necessarily about them, even though it is, you know what I mean. But it's in a lesser sense, and that works too. So I don't, you know, I don't think it really matters, and I don't think people here in LA. I think some people just decide to do it, and some people just don't want any part of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, DW is definitely helpful. If I have something that I can send to them and they put it on their Facebook, it definitely, you know, it gets me 1,000 more views, and it's definitely driven some traffic to my YouTube. So yeah, I don't know. It's all over the place.
And like you said, I mean, you're on the road. It's super time consuming. I'm in my studio and I'm editing video more than I'm doing anything else.
Oh, dude, you know? I know. That's the killer. I mean, oftentimes I have an idea. I'm like, oh, man, I would love to get this done in the next 4 or 5 hours, and it's just not going to happen. It's like, it's just not going to happen. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I think you just got to embrace it in the long run. Easier said than done, but I think that's the, you know, I'm not saying I have either, you know, but I think when I have these conversations with people about it, I'm like, oh, yeah. That's what you got to do.
It's being consistent, right? It's being consistent. It's having like a goal, a purpose, and leading people to it. I heard an interesting thing on this social media and marketing, like video conference call with a group of people the other day for an organization that I'm doing some drumming for, and the person said, nobody cares about you. They care about how you make them feel. I was like, this is interesting. You know, it's like you don't post something so you can get like a bunch of people going, hey, you're awesome.
Right.
But you want to post something that makes people go, oh man, this isn't either. And there were 3 things. It was like either inspire, educate, or entertain.
Yeah, that's excellent. I totally agree with that. If you give something that somebody at the end of the day they can figure out or learn something from, they're going to come back because they're like, oh man, that's what they think of first. They're not thinking of like, oh, that dude is cool. You know, they're
right,
like,
right.
What did I get out of this?
The thing that's hard to remember is, oh man, I need to make a post today. I haven't posted anything today. You know, that idea of like, got to be consistent. Yeah. But then you have to ask that filter of, does this do one of these 3 things?
What was that thing that you listened to? What was that?
That was from an actual human that I was interacting with.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a real person. It was a media company in Chicago that I was part of a meeting for.
Oh, cool. That's like a light bulb. That's like, oh yeah.
It's a light bulb. Man, so many things are light bulbs because it's like the wild frontier of social media. Inspire, educate, or entertain. Like every piece of content should do one of those 3 things.
Interesting.
I mean, that's a sliding scale. I mean, who knows what something that inspires somebody might not do that.
Oh yeah,
to
of course.
Else.
When you talk about something educational, it's going to be interest some people, and some people it's not. You know, but that's where you find your audience. You know, it's like if you're doing things on a certain educational, if you know, like if talking about miking drums for a lot of people, it's just their eyes are going to glaze over. But other people are going to be like, oh man, this is the shit I want to know about.
Oh man, this is the other interesting. Like you personally, Blair Sinta, have no idea who knows who you are.
Right.
Like, you may or may not know a guy named Nate Kuhn. Do you know that name?
Sorry, say it again.
Nate Kuhn. Probably don't.
I know Nate's name.
You know Nate's name. Okay. Yeah. He's an A&F guy.
Okay.
In Texas.
Okay.
But he is a rabid fan of yours. Like, he watches every one of your videos, all of your YouTube stuff. He's a studio guy in Texas. Like, that's his passion. He plays on tons of, like, Texas country, like, hits. That's his whole thing. He tours in a band, but his studio is his passion. But he is one of these people that is passionate about when you put something out.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, right? And you never know. I mean, like this guy from the Netherlands just contacted me today, was talking to me about a video that I did put up. I'm like, how do you know who I am?
Right.
The whole world is watching now.
Yeah. Yeah, you're putting it out there. You just don't know how far it's reaching.
And I think you said it earlier. It's like you have to do what you're into. You have to be authentic. You have to like put out what you're passionate about. And then maybe there's some kind of a process where you figure out how to not like in a cheesy used car salesman way, but some way to like entice people by giving little teaser hints at something that you're trying to draw them towards.
Yeah.
But not in a bad way, but in a good way. Like, I've got awesome information. I'm going to give you a little bit, and then to let you know that you can trust me. And then here it is.
Yeah. I have noticed this year, I did a little guest lecture at USC on 2 different days. And then I did my kind of little clinic / lecture at the University of Michigan. And, Michigan, I have a relationship there, but I've done it 2 years in a row now. But I definitely feel that's directly related to the YouTube stuff I've been putting up because,
like
people
they're wanting
see that
you to talk about the things. Right.
Yeah, it's relevant to them and they see that you know what you're talking about directly. So the idea of giving like the YouTube thing away for free definitely has brought me that, and it would be great to be doing that on a bigger scale. So, and I think we kind of touched on it earlier. It's like that's really the key of like you put that out there, and hopefully the right people are noticing it. Like your circle of people that say, "Oh man, we need that guy to come, educate these people, or come do a session or whatever." People that are into your thing, and that's what you get for putting things out for free. You do that work, and it's hopefully it comes back monetarily in other forms,
Right.
And I obviously like, I'm going to have to run. Actually, sorry. I got to grab this. Do you want to hang up and want me to call you back?
Yeah, give me a call back.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, no problem. Okay, bye.
Call is now being recorded.
Yeah.
I love it. I've got to figure out how to get that part on the podcast because that's not audible.
Oh, really? You're just gonna have to record it separately somehow and then snip it in there every time.
Yeah, that's great. So great.
Yeah. That could be like your call thing. Actually, I think you might get sued for that, but who knows?
This call is being recorded.
Yeah.
We can continue talking now, or if you want to.
Yeah. What do you think we had? Do you think you got enough, or I mean, I definitely got to get moving, but I'm definitely happy to talk again. Because I feel like half of this is like strategizing between the two of us, and half of it's information for other people. You know what I mean?
I know. I'm gonna try to figure out how much is kind of appropriate for someone to like eavesdrop in on our personal conversation, because sometimes people are kind of interested in that. But I don't know if we want to get more technical. I mean, if we could dive down into mic pre's and mics that you're using, placements and tunings, and I mean we could go down that rabbit hole if you want. And I could even edit in examples. Like you could talk about something, and then if you had a recording of it, I could actually pop it in and we could hear it.
Right.
I did do that with Ari. It takes a little more editing, but I'm kind of geeked out about it right now, so I don't mind doing extra work.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. Why don't we talk another time? We can talk about that, and then I could kind of file through things as I'm sitting in my studio and send you some little tips or things like that. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, why don't we? I mean, we could even break apart like one you have on YouTube already with like the bass drum one or the snare drum one.
Yeah.
And like the rim shots or no rim shots, or what? Maybe you could pick something, and then I could just get the sound files, and then we could just talk in detail. Whatever, but let's make the goal talking about, let's go in depth with like the sounds of rig things that you remember, the presettings and the mic placement and what mics you used. Okay.
Yeah, cool. Let's talk soon, in the next week or two, maybe later next week or something like that.
Next week? I think that's a good goal. I put them out every Friday.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. Or you can do a part 1 and part 2 if you want. I'm cool with that.
That's an idea too. Let me listen through what we have and see if I can start editing it and see if there's stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. And we'll go from there. And I'm around. Like, I'm going to St. Louis to visit my family, but I'll be there for the rest of this week. I don't know if you're light since it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I'm heading to San Francisco for a few days.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Early next week is open for me. I don't know how that is for you.
Yeah, it looks like the beginning of the week. You know what? It's all over the place right now. I got time now, for sure. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
now
we have like kind of and we've got more of a goal and a focus, so we could probably do it pretty quick.
Yeah. Cool.
If we're prepared. Okay, man. Cool. Well, happy Thanksgiving, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, dude. Sounds good.
All right, Blair. Talk to you later.
All right, talk to you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, there you have it. Part 1 of a conversation. I know we kind of nerded out on some different things. The next part of the conversation that will come out maybe in a week or so, it's already been recorded and I'm in the process of editing it right now. We go in total depth with one of Blair's recording sessions. We talk about microphones and mic pre's and compression settings and drum tunings and tracking. So it's going to be a much more in-depth, nerd alert drum hang. So I hope you come back for that as well. The way to contact Blair is he has his Facebook musician page is facebook.com/Blair Sinta Drums. His YouTube page is youtube.com/Blair Sinta. His website is blairsinta.com. And, of course, his Instagram would be instagram.com/Blair Sinta. Find him on all of those social medias. Follow, like, comment, share, and get into this dude. He's totally happening. Here is a sneak peek of part 2 of our talk, which is all about recording. I'll play you a little clip right now as a teaser, so you'll come back and listen to more Blair Sinta. Here it is.
What pre's are you using?
Well, I have a lot. I have some APIs, some API 312, and I mainly run kick, snare, and toms through those. Snare meaning top snare, not bottom. And the kick it's either the inside kick mic or the outside kick mic, and I will run a combination of 3 kick drum mics. Sometimes all 3, meaning a sub, a FET 47 type mic that really kind of gives a beefy tone with some punch to it, and then an inside kick, which is much more attack and kind of ugly sounding on its own.
Okay, there's your teaser. Now go practice. Talk to you in a week. Thank you so much for listening to the Drum Mantra podcast. Your time and attention is much appreciated. I would love it if you went to the iTunes store and left a rating, and please share this with anybody that you think would like to go deeper with their practice. Take care.